just the word, unmasking darkness, revealing light. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, nourishing night, of every post. She does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing light. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, vanishing light. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Icons crumble, empires fall. She stands tall, fierce, cold. Her voice echoes like thunderous call. In the chaos, her strength unfolds. Lost prophets scattered, truth ascends. The world watches and mesmerized. Heretical cows, battle never ends. In her light, dark meets demise. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, nourishing night, of every post. She does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing light. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, vanishing light. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Political cow. Political cow. Political cow. Political cow. The beacon bright, unveiling truth, vanishing light. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Breaking the law. Breaking the law. Breaking the law. Political cow. Icons crumble, empires fall. She stands tall, fierce and cold. Her voice echoes a thunderous call. And in the chaos, her strength unfolds. Puppets scatter, truth descends. The world watches. Political cows, battle never ends. In her light, dark resistance lies.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining in again. There's been a ton of stuff that's happened over the weekend. It's almost like every day, every week, every weekend, there's like so much happening. Partly, I feel like, well, at least until this weekend, it's been a lot of acceleration happening on the Biden camp, just pushing through quite a few things right at the end of their tenure here. Whether it's foreign aid, undoing certain things they had put in place earlier in the year, like their more stringent immigration policies. A lot of things have been happening right up in the end. I almost feel like it's more things that have happened recently than have been in place, I don't know, in the past 3.5 years, almost 4 years. More has happened in the last month since the election than has happened in almost 4 years. It's bizarre. But a couple of things that I've got a big focus on right now. Trump had his first major interview with Sunday morning talk shows, Meet the Press. Of course, you can see Kristen Welker's reaction throughout the whole thing here was pretty significant there. We'll play through it. We'll talk through and interpret what was kind of happening, assess the questions that were asked, the responses given, so forth. But what couldn't be missed was the expression on her face. I mean, just look how wide her eyes are open. She's just, I think, trying to seem impartial, but visibly you could tell that wasn't quite the case. They had previewed some of what was going to be talked about on MSNBC. If you caught a couple nights ago my live stream, they showed a couple of segments, not too much, but they at least previewed it to kind of give a little teaser as to what was coming up. Of course, for the MSNBC audience, they asked, something that would be in favor to them to kind of be interested in watching there. But it's interesting too, though, because if MSNBC is going to be spun off, they want to save the NBC News brand. They're not going to be intermingling the two very much longer. This might be one of the final kind of co-promotion or co-branded type efforts that they'll put out there. Remains to be seen. Will Elon pick it up? Who knows what's going to happen there? But this that'll be interesting as it unfolds. But this interview again, first one that's really out there that Trump has done. Actually, let me get Welker's face here. There you go. You get the full view. They had the program kind of blocking it there, but this is the first major one that he's done since the election, and let's go ahead and dive into it here in a minute. But this is the big item, and then of course Syria is the other one, and we got a series of data points that I wanted to share with everybody, including updated messaging from Netanyahu. And there's a lot of folks that are starting to, I think, put a lot of kind of part of the story situations, half-truths out there with respect to, Israel taking a defensive stance on the border there. I mean, clearly there's some instability. They need to kind of do some stuff there, but we'll take a look at that too. But a lot going on. So let's jump into it, including Biden jumping in the mix too, talking about, what's happened in Syria. But let's jump in first. We'll talk and take a look at what's Trump got going on in this Meet the Press interview, and then we'll jump into the content around Syria. So without further ado, Kristen Welker, take it away with our president. Oh, wait, hold up. Gotta fix up the audio here first. One of these days I'll have somebody help me with this. All right, here we go.
Signature promises on the campaign trail, which was to end inflation, to lower prices. You are now proposing tariffs against the United States' three biggest trading partners. Economists of all stripes say that ultimately consumers pay the price of tariffs.
I don't believe
Can
it.
you guarantee American families won't pay more?
I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee tomorrow. But I can say that if you look at just pre-COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. And I had a lot of tariffs on a lot of different countries, but in particular China. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars, and we had no inflation. In fact, when I handed it over, they didn't have inflation for a year and a half.
So quick point to make there. When inflation hit its max, CPI hit 9%. Of course, a lot of different areas of the economy saw much more significant inflation than 9%. I mean, you just go the grocery store and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But a number of economists and a number of studies that came out attributed just 0.25% of that 9% towards tariffs. So even if there was not, the excessive money printing that had happened, the tariffs during, it was during Biden's term, the Trump tariffs that were continued only were contributing about 0.25% to the overall inflation rate.
They won almost 2 years just based on what I had created. And then they created inflation with energy and with spending too much. So I think I'm a big believer in tariffs. I think tariffs are the most beautiful word. I think they're beautiful. It's going to make us rich. We're subsidizing.
I'm sorry. I just love the way he talks. It's the most beautiful word. Who else talks like that?
Canada to the tune of over $100 billion a year. We're subsidizing Mexico for almost $300 billion. We shouldn't be subsidizing. Why are we subsidizing these countries? If we're going to subsidize them, let them become a state. We're subsidizing Mexico, and we're subsidizing Canada, and we're subsidizing many countries all over the world. And all I want to do is I want to have a level, fast, but fair playing field.
Sir, your previous tariffs during your first administration cost Americans some $80 billion, and now you have major companies from Walmart, Black & Decker, AutoZone saying that any tariffs are going to force them to drive up prices for their consumers. How do you make sure that these CEOs, that these companies don't, in fact, pass on the cost of tariffs to their consumers?
They cost Americans nothing. They made a great economy for us. They also solve another problem. If we were going to have problems having to do with wars and having to do with other things, tariffs, I have stopped wars with tariffs by saying.
So a quick calc on that. She said 80 billion attributed to tariffs in terms of increases. Keep in mind 2 trillion of COVID spending that happened during Trump's tenure, which we didn't really have a better idea at the time. It was like the only immediate solution that could be put in place. Otherwise, the impacts would have been catastrophic if no action was taken. So 2 trillion at that point in time, and then in excess of 2 trillion through Biden's tenure. We'll just call it 4 trillion total, right, of money printing that happened. So if you take that 80 billion and you have the denominator of 4 trillion, that is 2%, right, of the overall impact of inflation.
You guys want to fight, it's great, but both of you are going to pay tariffs to the United States at 100%. And they have many purposes, tariffs, if properly used. I don't say you use them like a madman. I say properly used. But it didn't cost this country anything. It made this country money, and we never really got the chance to go all out because we had to fight COVID in the last part. And we did it very successfully. And when I handed it over to Biden, the stock market was higher than what it was just previous to COVID coming in. It was actually higher. Tariffs are properly used, are a very powerful tool, not only economically, but also for getting other things outside of economics.
Are you actually going to impose these tariffs, or are they a negotiating tactic?
Well, I'll give you an example. With Canada, and in particular Mexico, we have millions of people pouring into our country. You agree with that. I spoke with both. I spoke with Justin Trudeau. In fact, he flew to Mar-a-Lago within about 15 seconds after the call ended. Yeah. He was at Mar-a-Lago. We were having dinner talking about it. I said, you have to close up your borders because they're coming in the northern border, too, a lot. Not like the southern border, but they're coming in the Canadian border a lot. And drugs are pouring in. Almost as importantly, drugs are pouring in, maybe more importantly, drugs are pouring in at levels never seen before, 10 times what we had. They're just pouring in. We can't have open borders. And I said to the president of Mexico and to Justin Trudeau, if it doesn't stop, I'm going to put tariffs on your country at about 25%.
The chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, said he will not leave his post even if you ask him to. Will you try to replace Jerome Powell?
No, I don't think so. I don't see it, but I don't.
So this is interesting. She's going very quickly, unless this is editing, just jumping from. And by the way, I'm watching this the first go around with you guys. I've only read a few talking points throughout the day with it. So this is a fresh look at it I'm having with you guys and just thinking through it. So throw it in the chat if you guys have any comments or questions. I'm primarily looking at what's going on YouTube. I may scan some of the other ones. Rompy too on TikTok, taxing the rich has the same effect as tariffs on prices. Lefties are just uneducated. Thank you for the comment there. But if you got any comments or any thoughts or whatever, throw them in the chat. I'll be watching them primarily again on the YouTube. But interesting though, she's jumping from one thing to the next. I don't know if this is really the flow of that session. It seems like this is more just kind of editing, that they jumped from one topic to the next. Remember this interview, they had previews of it the Thursday, or I guess last Thursday, starting at that point in time. So it absolutely was pre-recorded. This was not something that happened, live in front of us. So definitely some of these portions, just keep in mind, there's probably a lot of editing that's happening.
I think if I told him to, he would. But if I asked him to, he probably wouldn't. But if I told him to, he would.
You don't have plans to do that right now?
No, I don't.
Okay, let's talk about mass deportation, one of
Okay.
your big agenda items. You've talked about prioritizing people who have criminal histories.
Correct.
But is it your plan to deport everyone who is here illegally over the next 4 years?
Well, I think you have to do it, and it's a very tough thing to do. But you have to have, you have rules, regulations, laws. They came in illegally. The people that have been treated very unfairly are the people that have been online for 10 years to come into the country. And we're going to make it very easy for people to come in terms of they have to pass the test. They have to be able to tell you what the Statue of Liberty is. They have to tell you a little bit about our country. They have to love our country. They can't.
Very excellent point. So I'm here from an immigrant family. I always talk about my grandmother. We were here first. My grandmother was sponsored by us to come into the United States. And she absolutely looked forward to learning about the United States, the history, the tradition, becoming more assimilated into the culture. And she learned what the stars meant on the flag. I mean, she didn't know this stuff, right? So what the stripes represented, a lot of the other symbolism that came into play as well. And I mean, and this was many, many years ago, right? I'm fairly old now at this point in time, but she really looked forward to it, and she learned English to be able to take that test and to be able to communicate with folks during the interview process, and just through daily life. She enjoyed that, and she looked forward to it, and she took pride in it. Right? I think that expectation or that that level of engagement that we want folks to have to aspire towards American culture and American ideals is kind of, faded. It's a little sad to me. It was something that I thought was a good thing, and now it's kind of frowned upon to a significant degree. So what he's talking about here, there's going to be folks that jump out and say, hey, this is, well, they'll call him racist. They'll call him all kinds of things, right? But why? What's wrong with promoting American values, right? Are we saying American values are not the right ones, or they're not good? Why is there this excess in self-loathing that's being promoted? That's the part that gets me now, right? So, I mean, from a personal and family experience, I've had a number of relatives that waited their term, they followed their process, and this is the outcomes that he's talking about here.
Can't come out of prisons. We don't want people that are in for murder. So we had 11,000 and 13,000 different estimates, 13,099 murderers released into our country over the last 3 years. They're walking down the streets. They're walking next to you and your family, and they're very dangerous.
The 13,000 figure, I think, goes back about 40 years.
No, it doesn't. No, it's within the 3-year period. It's during the Biden term. No, that was a fiction that they put that out. This was done by the Border Patrol. It's 13,099, and it's during the Biden period of time. And these are murderers, many of whom murdered more than one person. You don't want those people in this country.
But you're saying something, sir, that's significant. I just want to make sure I'm clear, which is that you're saying, yes, you're going to focus on the people with criminal histories, but everyone who's here illegally has to go.
I'm saying this. We have to get the criminals out of our country. We have to get people that were taken out of mental institutions and put them back into their mental institution, no matter what country it is. Do you know that Venezuela, their prisons are at the lowest point in terms of emptiness that they've ever been? They're taking their people out of those prisons by the thousands, and they're drunk. And just to get back, because I know exactly what you're getting at. Number one, we're doing criminals, and we're going to do them really rapidly. We're getting the worst gang probably with MS-13, and the Venezuelan gangs are the worst in the world. They're vicious, violent people. And you see what they've done in Colorado and other places. They're taking over, literally taking over apartment complexes and doing it with impunity. They don't care. They couldn't. They just are. They're in the real estate business.
The local police say that is not the case in Colorado.
Oh, it's totally the case. I mean,
Okay, that's bizarre. It's not the case in Colorado. Folks, it's not that hard to Google it or to find that footage of the apartment complex, the 2 apartment complexes that were overrun. Very sad situation, and that's not the only instance of that. There was a lot of not so nice things that happened, so I'm surprised that she's trying to outright refute that, which that can be very easily looked up. And it's not just, it's not AI stuff. It's literally, this is, video footage from the security cameras in those places, police reports, so forth. It's very easily verifiable. And so the new border czar, Tom Homan, I think if you want a job done right, not just, management of the border, but anything, he's the kind of guy that you want to put in charge. Seriously, if you want to get anything done, that's the kind of guy I'd want on my team to, see things through.
You don't believe the local police.
I play it. I used to play it at my rallies every single night. No, they're breaking into doors. They're taking over the building.
But sir, you
and by the way,
raised
the
point.
police are afraid to do anything.
You raised the point that the logistics are complicated. You said
Sure
it yourself.
they are,
You would
but
need
everything's
24
complicated.
Yeah, you need 24 times more ICE detention capacity just to deport 1 million people per year, not to mention more agents, more judges, more planes. Is it realistic to deport everyone who's
You have
here
no
illegally?
choice. First of all, they're costing us a fortune. But we're starting with the criminals, and we got to do it. And then we're starting with others, and we're going to see how it goes.
Who are the others?
Others are other people outside of criminals. We have convicted murders. We don't mean people that are even on trial. We have people that have murdered numerous people are on our streets and in our farms, and we have to get them out of our country.
What about dreamers, sir? Dreamers who were brought to this country.
So it's like a stepwise process, it sounds like. Start with the overall statement. Okay, that was answered satisfactorily. Then, what about the scope? You mean everybody? And he's like, yeah, I mean everybody. And then, let's go into the dreamer question, which I think kind of pulls at people a little bit more. That's a difficult circumstance for a lot of people to kind of wrestle with, right? So it's kind of a thought through stepwise type questioning process. You might be able to take snippets of it in context, out of context, whatever it might be, depending on how it's answered. I think that's unfortunately how it's been structured here. But if a few live streams ago, we did dive into this a little bit, that if you go back to footage of Bill Clinton, he clearly is talking in the same terms that Trump is now. The exact same message, the exact same policy. Likewise with Obama, exact same message and policy. The shift started to happen with Hillary as she was starting to run to be the Democrat candidate, and she was looking to broaden her appeal. And that's where people started to kind of focus in on dreamers and some of these other things, because she was looking to expand her base and, encompass a larger part of the electorate that would be supportive of her against all the other candidates. Bernie Sanders was very strong at that time. She was looking for some way to separate herself from the pack. And rather than just going with, the stated platform, that twist or that shift at that point in time that she initiated has led us into our current state where, race, identity politics comes into play so much with respect to this particular topic.
Illegally as children. You said once back in 2017, they, quote, shouldn't be very worried about being deported. Should they be worried now?
The dreamers are going to come later, and we have to do something about the dreamers, because these are people that have been brought here at a very young age, and many of these are middle-aged people now. They don't even speak the language of their country. And yes, we're going to do something about the dreamers.
What does that mean?
And
what are you going to do?
I will work with the Democrats on a plan, and if we can come up with a plan, but the Democrats have made it very, very difficult to do anything. Republicans are very open to the dreamers. The dreamers, we're talking many years ago, they were brought into this country, many years ago. Some of them are no longer young people, and in many cases, they become successful. They have great jobs. In some cases, they have small businesses. Some cases, they might have large businesses. And we're going to have to do something with them. And
you want them to be able to stay. That's what you're saying.
I do.
Okay.
I want to be able to work something out. And it should have been able to be worked out over the last 3 or 4 years. And it never got worked out. Biden could have done it because he controlled, Congress to a certain extent, right? He could have done something, but they didn't do it. I never understood why, because they always seem to want to do it. But then when it comes down to it, they don't. I think we can work.
That's an interesting point, and it's something that you can always kind of bring back in. I'm interested in what people say in the chat here. Again, maybe I need to scan some of the other platforms that are being streamed on right now. But when you have, full control, Trump has full control going in to his term. So all eyes are on him to kind of deliver and get the party rallied around this. Biden had the same scenario. Why wasn't anything done? Right? That's the big question on a lot of things. And then you got to focus in on what were the things that did get put in place. What are the priorities you have set in front of you? Are you really going to deliver on the promises you made during the campaign? And a lot of it just fell to the wayside in the past 4 years. So these are some very definitive remarks and answers that he's giving. And I think all eyes are going to be on him for, let's just say, for this first year to really start, step by step putting these building blocks in place that he's making commitments to now.
Work with the Democrats and work something out.
Let me ask you about another group of people, the estimated 4 million families in America who have mixed immigration status. So I'm talking about parents who might be here illegally, but the kids are here legally. Your borders are
You're talking about separation.
Yeah, well, there are two aspects to this. Your borders are, Tom Homan said, they can be deported together.
Correct.
Is that the plan?
Well, that way you keep I don't want to be breaking up families, so the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together, and you have to send them all back.
Even kids who are here legally?
Well, what you're going to do if they want to stay with the father? Look, we have to have rules and regulations. You can always find something out like, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. I'll tell you what's going to be horrible. When we take a wonderful young woman who's with a criminal, and they show the woman, and she could stay by the law, but they show the woman being taken out, or they want her out, and your cameras are focused on her as she's crying, as she's being taken out of our country, and then the public turns against us. But we have to do our job, and you have to have a series of standards and a series of laws. And in the end, look, our country is a mess.
Let me ask you about some of your other problems.
I wonder how he finished that answer. It didn't go all the way through. They cut it off. Again, it's the editing. I wonder how he finished that up, but they got to fit these, however long this segment's going to be, 20, 30, 40 minutes, or what have you. But there's probably more to it that maybe they'll release in the coming days or weeks.
Promises on this topic. You've promised to end birthright citizenship on day one. Is that still your plan?
Yeah, absolutely.
The 14th Amendment, though, says that, quote, all persons born in the United States are citizens. Can you get around the 14th Amendment with an executive action?
We're going to have to get a change. We'll maybe have to go back to the people, but we have to end it. We're the only country that has it.
Through an executive action?
We're the only country that has it. Do you know, if somebody sets a foot, just a foot, 1 foot, you don't need two, on our land, congratulations, you are now a citizen of the United States of America. Yes, we're going to end that because it's ridiculous.
Through executive action?
Well, if we can, through executive action. I was going to do it through executive action, but then we had to fix COVID first, to be honest with you. We have to end it.
Let's talk about health care. I've been talking to...
All right, just to complete some thoughts on that birthright citizenship. It's... there is, I think, something important here to be said, that if somebody just kind of like rushes across and they're not here with the proper paperwork or didn't go through the right process, and then that same day they have a child, all of a sudden they have somebody who is kind of anchored here, right? I don't think that makes a lot of sense, right? That's bizarre. And again, I'm of an immigrant family here, right? My parents came here through the right process. All of our relatives came through the right process, right? Waited to turn, the whole bit. And as, family members, everybody became citizens. Once they had kids, then their kids, became citizens as well. I mean, if it follows that normal process, people become assimilated, they come into the system properly. That's what it's for, right? That's the kind of scenario that you're after, not this idea of people kind of, you're effectively, getting around the system. It's like a loophole, how it's structured right now. And I don't think that it's, I don't think it's appropriate, right? So I was naturalized just, once my parents were, right? Because I was a small child at that point. And, when they got their citizenship, once you're like a little kid, then that kind of, you could follow process with that. But somebody that just is kind of passing through. You kind of fly through the airport, have a kid, all of a sudden they're a citizen. It leads to all of these really strange scenarios. And so there's a lot of this gotcha stuff that's happening where they say, like, well, what about the dreamers, or what about this and that? On the flip side of things, this birthright citizenship has become one of those exception type scenarios that is having unintended consequences.
To Republican lawmakers on Capitol Hill, they say it's no longer feasible to repeal and replace Obamacare because it's so entrenched in the.
Hey, Caleb, I appreciate the comment over here on YouTube saying, well, probably because you had the money and the time to go through the process. We left a war-torn country where everything was taken away from us. Any money, any status, position was completely taken away. We went to a secondary country and went to the American Embassy and applied and waited, and then came here. So if you think about people that are asking for asylum, my family's names were actually on real lists. Some of our family members didn't make it. That was like real asylum that was being sought after, not some of this kind of phony stuff that's going on now. And there was no money. We did have all the time in the world. That's, what else are you going to do, right? Trying to look for an opportunity to, find a new landing point. But that's the process that was in front of us, and that's the process that was followed. It's tough. Life is not easy. But, you work at things and you try to achieve the outcomes that are beneficial to you. It's not, the system is not fair. We talk about fairness a lot, at least on the liberal side. They talk about equity a lot, but is it an equitable system when people can find these types of loopholes and just take a shortcut? Or do we need to give equal treatment to folks, right? So I appreciate the comment, Caleb, but just to shed a little bit more light on our circumstance, there was no money. There's plenty of time because we were effectively exiled from the country that everyone's name showed up on a list to kind of round up.
System. Do you see it that way? Is that now off the table,
So
repealing and replacing?
when John
Obamacare?
McCain let us down by voting, and Murkowski and Collins and whoever it was that voted against, but they really let us down. They did us a great disservice because we would have had great health. Obamacare is lousy health care. It's very expensive health care for the people. It's also expensive for the country, but for the people. It's lousy health care. When John McCain gave his thumbs down after saying for 10 years that he wants to repeal and replace, okay? And then he came out, put his now famous thumbs down, and he became a hero to the left. Let me tell you, if we find something better, I would love to do it. But unless we find, but one thing I have to say, I inherited Obamacare, or anything else you want to go, it's got about 20 names, but I inherited it. And I had a decision to make with Health and Human Services. I had a big decision to make. Do I make it as good as we can make it, or do I let it rot?
Yeah, I see some folks talking about whether the birthright citizenship is the law or not the law in the chat. So I'm going to just plug in my AI. Like, this is not just opinion. It's going to go look up some authoritative sources, and I'll ask it's give us a little bit of clarity on what the 14th.
Hey, Miss
Hey,
Dude, I'm here. What can I do for you?
Hey, can you help my live stream viewers by giving them a synopsis of the citizenship component of the 14th Amendment?
Totally. The 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause, part of the United States Constitution, grants citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States. This includes former slaves freed after the Civil War, ensuring they have equal protection under the law. It's a fundamental part of American civil rights.
Can you speak to the specific language of it in terms of the individuals being subject to the jurisdiction of the United States?
Subject to the jurisdiction means being under the authority and legal protections of the United States. Basically, if you're born or naturalized in the U.S., and are not under the jurisdiction of another country, like diplomats' children, you're covered by U.S. law and eligible for citizenship. It's a way to ensure that those who owe allegiance to the U.S. are recognized as citizens. Clear enough?
So that last part there, I think, is important. If you owe allegiance subject to the jurisdiction, and that's where I think people are kind of focused in on. I don't know the exact legalities around it or the details behind court cases or what have you, but that's kind of when people make reference to the 14th Amendment, as Trump just did. That's the element that they're kind of keying in on. Lucas says, look back at my comment. Let me see if I can find your comment. It's not the law. I was wondering if you, citizen, if you step foot on American soil. Oh, okay. You kind of chat with the folks here. Okay. Yep. All right, let's keep going. They've moved on to healthcare, which very disastrous in the United States. I hope this is something that we can improve upon.
And a lot of political people said, let it rot and let it be a failure. I said, that's not the right thing to do. And I had very good people in the medical area that handled that. And I said, what do you want to do? He said, we really have an obligation to make it as good as we can. And we did. We made it as good as we can make it. Instead of making it bad where everybody would be calling for its repeal, I made it so that it works. Now,
But you did try to overturn it,
it's
sir.
Well, it's lousy.
You did try to overturn it. You did
No.
have your Justice Department try to direct the Supreme Court to
No,
overturn
we got a little bit of a surprising opinion, to be honest with you. If it would have been overturned, we would have had much better health care right now. But right now, we have something that I made the best of.
Donald says, just another influencer writing on the backs of the unfortunate. I'm not sure if you're talking about somebody in the chat or me, but let me know.
I could have made the worst of it, and it would have fallen by the wayside. I did the right thing from a human standpoint, but, you know, I'm sort of proud of my decision. At the same time, sometimes I regret it. I told the people, and I gave them the money to do it. I said, fix it, make it work, because people would have suffered. But it's too bad that they voted no. I wish John McCain, I wish he fought for 10 years on replacing Obamacare, for 10 years, and then he voted against. Nobody understands it.
Sir, you said during the campaign you had concepts of a plan. Do you have an actual plan at this point for health care?
Yes, we have concepts of a plan that would be better.
Still just concepts? Do you have a fully developed plan?
Let me explain. We have the biggest healthcare companies looking at it.
So this concepts of a plan thing, I think, is interesting to me. I don't think it's necessarily the case that somebody needs to have every single detail outlined step by step for any of these plans or what have you. There's some foundational principles. There's other elements that you can use as a basis from which you construct something. But during an election cycle, anybody that says they have a 100% complete plan ready to go probably don't. They're probably in the same state. They're just not articulating it the same way. And so, as a business person, you don't go in necessarily and have every single scenario outlined to the nth level of detail. That's not very efficient or effective. As you set some strategies, as you set some objectives and prioritize things, then you could start to flesh things out, get into a little bit more detail, and you continue to operate and kind of shift gears as new information comes in. But through the whole process, you have a particular outcome in mind that you're after. So play on words, jumping on something that was said during the debate with Kamala Harris that I think was used against him, but in any event.
We have doctors. We're always looking because Obamacare stinks. It's lousy. There are better answers. If we come up with a better answer, I would present that answer to Democrats and to everybody else, and I do something about it. But until we have that, or until they can approve it, but we're not going to go through the big deal. I am the one that saved Obamacare, I will say, and I did the right thing. I could have done the more political thing and killed it. And all I had to do is starve it to death.
You did try to have your Justice Department effectively kill it, though,
No,
sir.
kill it from a legal standpoint, but from a physical standpoint, I made it work.
In your concepts of a plan, sir, will people with pre-existing conditions still have coverage, and can you guarantee their prices will not go up?
The answer is yes, they'll have coverage. You have to have it.
Just want to highlight a comment Medusa Tiff said here in the YouTube chat. Anyone can have a plan, but a lot of things and a lot of work is done for it to become actions. And I think that's fundamentally the component that's, that's the missing link here, right? Nothing can be done at the snap of fingers. And I think that's 100% correct there. There's outcomes that you're after, and you have to build towards what makes sense to kind of get there. You understand what the current state of affairs is. You start to take incremental steps. You adjust as you navigate things, and as new information comes in, as new, as you test different things. If that's not working, okay, shift gears, move towards something else. That's how business works. That's how I want to see the government operate a little bit more too. So I appreciate the comment. And I'll highlight also Betty Jefferson saying, "Stop lying, Trump." Which, what is he? What don't you like that he's talking about here, Betty?
And what about their
Because
prices?
you know what?
What about their prices, sir?
I want the prices to go down. I want to have better health care for less money. And there are ways of doing it, I believe.
Let's talk about abortion, sir. You have taken responsibility for overturning Roe v. Wade. You've said that abortion is now a state issue. There are steps that you could take, though, as president, to restrict abortion through executive action without Congress. More than half of abortions in this country are medication abortions. Will you restrict the availability of abortion pills when you're in office?
I'll probably stay with exactly what I've been saying for the last 2 years, and the answer is no.
You commit to that?
Well, I commit. I mean, do things change? I think they change. I hate to go on shows like Joe Biden. I'm not going to give my son a pardon. I will not, under any circumstances, give him a pardon. I watched this, and I always knew he was going to give him a pardon, and so I don't like putting myself in a position like that. So things do change, but I don't think it's going to change at all.
And when we come back, will
All right, let's see if I can successfully run through it here. Here we go.
to be the next FBI director. Yeah. He has a list in his book of 60 people that he calls members of
Talking about Kash Patel now and his appointment to FBI director.
The so-called deep state. It includes Democrats like Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton. It includes former members of your cabinet, from Bill Barr to Christopher Wray. You campaigned on destroying the deep state. Do you want Kash Patel to launch investigations into people on that list?
No, I mean, he's going to do what he thinks is right.
Do you think that's right? Do you think that's right, sir?
If they think that somebody was dishonest or crooked or a corrupt politician, I think he probably has an obligation to do it. But
are you going to direct him to do it?
No, not at all. Not at all. We have two great people there. We have him and we have Pam. And Pam Bondi has been like a rocket ship. She's very popular and very good and very fair. And Kash Patel is very fair. I'll tell you, I
don't know what folks feel in the live chat. Let me know if you've seen Kash Patel before. I hadn't seen him until more recently and just seen some clips. And there's some clips they're taking out of context, I feel like. But what do you guys think about Kash Patel if you're familiar with him? I haven't, but again, I haven't really heard about him that much until more recently. Likewise with Pam Bondi. The only time I've seen him is with I've had him on past live streams, but the Polk County sheriff that always has, some fairly entertaining, press conferences. I've seen her with him at different moments in time, but in any event, I'm not terribly familiar with her in, a great level of detail. It is interesting, though, that she is the AG from Florida, right? So there is probably a connection point there with, him being in those circles in Florida through DeSantis and so forth.
I thought Kash may be difficult because he's, a strong conservative voice. And I don't know of anybody that's not singing his praises. The other day I was watching, and Trey Gowdy, who's a moderate person and very smart and very respected in the party.
Some interesting comments just come through. The woman's aggravating Trump. Trump's being patient. There's so many snippets of her. I've got it as an image down there at the bottom. You can kind of see the level of, it's not anxiety. It's just there's like a jumpiness to kind of getting to the next point and trying to get to, the next punchline or whatever, right? But through the editing and other stuff, hasn't quite happened yet. And I do think he has been pretty patient, right? So anyway, interesting comment there. Trump isn't lying. He's the only person that has been totally honest with everyone, says Wanda. Let's appreciate that comment too. And like it or not, he speaks his mind, right? And I think he puts stuff out there that a lot of people are unwilling to do so. You look at the comment he just made with respect to Biden, like, hey, look, I don't want to make absolute commitments or statements of something being absolute when we clearly see things change as new information comes in. Of course, the Biden situation is a little bit different. He was just trying to call him out a little bit there. Paul, I'll let your comment stand alone. The CIA says that we always win. I feel a little scared about that. Air says clown fries, I think.
He's Cash's biggest fan. He said, this is the most misunderstood man in politics. He's great. I guess they worked together on the Russia hoax or something. And Trey Gowdy became a fan. Trey Gowdy. Everybody respects him. And, just like him, others also. I don't know of one negative vote. I don't think he's going to have any negative votes.
Is it your expectation, though, that Kash Patel will pursue investigations against your political enemies?
No, I don't think so.
Do you want to see that happen?
If they were crooked, if they did something wrong, if they have broken the law, probably. They went after me, They went after me and I did nothing wrong.
Well, let me ask you this. You said President Biden, quote, that you're going to appoint a real special prosecutor to go after Joe Biden. You said that
Where
during
did I say that?
the campaign.
Where?
You said that on Truth Social, June 12th, 2023. I will appoint a real special prosecutor to go after the most corrupt president in the history of the United States, Joe Biden, and the entire
That
Biden
part is
crime
true.
family. Are you going to do that? Are you going to go after Joe Biden?
I'm really looking to make our country successful. I'm not looking to go back into the past. I'm looking to make our country successful. Retribution will be through success. If we can make this country successful, that would be that would be such a great achievement. Bring it back. We have a country now that's overridden with crime, that has millions of people that shouldn't be here, that should be in prisons in other countries, that should be in mental institutions. We have drug lords being dropped into our country and told never go back to their country. I'm looking to make our country great. I'm looking to bring prices down because, I won on two things, the border, and more than immigration. They like to say immigration. I break it down more to the border, but I won on the border and I won on groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries. Like almost, who uses the word? I started using the word, the groceries. When you buy apples, when you buy bacon, when you buy eggs, they would double and triple the price over a short period of time. And I won an election based on that. We're going to bring those prices way down.
I want to pause here because what you're saying is significant. Because you wrote on Truth Social in 2023 that you're going to appoint a real special prosecutor to go after Joe Biden. Now you're saying you're not going to do that.
I will say this. No, I'm not doing that unless I find something that I think is reasonable. But that's not going to be my decision. That's going to be Pam Bondi's decision and, to a different extent, Kash Patel. Assuming they're both there, and I think they're both going to get approved. But while you ask me that, what they've done to me with weaponization is a disgrace.
We'll get to some of that,
No,
sir.
wait. You can't do one without the other. In the history of our country, nothing like this has ever happened. And I've won these cases. I've won every one, and the rest are in the process of being won. Deranged Jack Smith is on his way back to The Hague, where he can execute people. This is where he should have stayed. I think he's dangerous even being there. But I'll tell you what, What they've done to me in terms of weaponization, indictments, impeachments, and everything else.
Jack Smith going back to The Hague. That's interesting. Was he part of, I guess, the world, I don't know, what do you call it? What is it? Let me ask my AI real quick
Hey,
what his history
Masood.
is. Where was
I'm
that?
here. What's
Hey,
that?
can you tell me what Jack Smith did before he was special prosecutor?
Jack Smith has had a long career in law. And before becoming special counsel, he served in various roles as a prosecutor. He was notably the head of the Public Integrity Section of the U.S. Department of Justice, where he oversaw public corruption and election crime cases. He's had his hands in some big cases before this latest assignment. What are your thoughts on him?
Did he have any roles as far as international law working out of The Hague?
Yes, Jack Smith also has significant experience in international law. He served as a coordinator of investigations in the Office of the Prosecutor at the International Criminal Court. There, he specialized in prosecuting war crimes and crimes against humanity, gaining crucial experience on the international stage. He's pretty well-rounded when it comes to justice. Intrigued by his experience?
Okay, interesting. So he was part of the International Criminal Court. All right, let's keep going.
And in the end, it probably helped me because I got the biggest vote, the most votes any Republican's ever gotten in history.
Pam Bondi talks about investigating the investigators. Do you want her to investigate Jack Smith?
I want her to do what she wants to do.
Do you want to see Jack Smith investigated?
Well, I think he's very corrupt, but I want her to do whatever she has to do.
Are you going to direct her
No,
to
I'm not.
prosecute
I'm not.
Jack
She's
Smith?
a very smart person. She was a great attorney general in Florida. She's very experienced. I want her to do what she wants to do. I'm not going to instruct her to do it, no.
Sir, are you going to fire the current FBI director, Christopher Wray, who you appointed?
Well, I can't say I'm thrilled with him. He invaded my home. I'm suing the country over it. He invaded Mar-a-Lago. I'm very unhappy with the things he's done. And crime is at an all-time high. Migrants are pouring into the country that are from prisons and from mental institutions, as we've discussed. I can't say I'm thrilled. I don't want to be Joe Biden and give you an answer and then do the exact opposite.
We're going to talk about
So
that,
I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to say is I certainly cannot be happy with him. You take a look at what's happened. And then when I was shot in the ear, he said, oh, maybe it was shrapnel. Where's the shrapnel coming from? Is it coming from...
I don't know if you guys remember seeing that or not. That was one of the most ridiculous statements I'd ever heard when Ray came back and said that.
Is it coming from heaven? I don't think so. So we need somebody to straighten. You know, I have a lot of respect for the FBI, but the FBI's respect has gone way down over the last number of years.
Don't you have to fire him in order to make room for Cash Patel if he is, in fact, confirmed?
Well, I mean, it would sort of seem pretty obvious that if Cash gets in, he's going to be taking somebody's place, right? And somebody is the man that you're talking about.
I asked you last time we sat down for an interview if you were going to pardon yourself. You said no. But now that President Biden has pardoned his son, Hunter, are you reconsidering? Might you pardon yourself?
I didn't do anything wrong. I was given the option. And the lawyers told me, a very specific lawyer, I don't have to go into who, but very high up in the...
Interesting, folks in the chat. Just read some of these comments. He lies to her face. Does he ever speak truth? No. Are you a Trump? Oh, okay, fantastic. I just read it. Am I a Trump supporter? Yeah, I did vote for Trump. I voted for Trump. For the reasons that he's outlining and has outlined throughout this discussion as well. So, Rudy, what is it that I guess you feel that he's lying about right now? Because he just got done talking about the pardoning, the self-pardoning thing, if it's that or something earlier. I guess let's hit some of those specific topics. I'm curious what you guys are thinking in that regard.
In the administration said, sir, if you pardon yourself, you're going to look guilty. And you did nothing wrong. Oh, I had that option. I could have saved myself a lot of legal fees. But it turned out that I was right. Look at what's gone on. Everything's being dropped. I still have a Fani Willis, a total hoax. That's a total hoax. It's all being dropped.
I also asked the president-elect about NBC News' report.
So interesting comment, Kara Kane. Crime is at an all-time low. Look it up. Shoot, my AI doesn't have access to absolute current data. I think it's like 6 months back that it can kind of run through, but the FBI did publish a report recently where it restated crime statistics for the past, I don't know, say 2-3 years, oddly enough, aligning with Joe Biden's tenure as president. And it showed that crime is actually not at an all-time low. It has actually gone up. Let's see, Sean. Here we go. The man who calls Medal of Freedom better than the Medal of Honor tries to be wholesome. Talking about Joe here because his face just popped up. I don't know.
Reporting that President Biden is considering preemptive pardons for some of the people who have clashed with Mr. Trump, including Senator-elect Adam Schiff, Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Yeah, I'm going to try and zip forward again. Let's see how this goes.
On January 6th, including the more than 900 people who pleaded guilty to crimes.
I'm going to look at everything. We're going to look at individual
Everyone.
cases, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm going to be acting very quickly.
Within your first 100 days, first day?
First day.
First day.
Yeah, I'm looking
Can
first
issue
day.
these pardons.
These people have been there, how long is it, 3 or 4 years?
Okay.
You know, by the way, they've been in there for years, and they're in a filthy, disgusting place that shouldn't even be allowed to be open.
And when we come back, President-elect Trump's message to the people.
Yeah.
Have you talked to President Putin?
No, I have not.
You haven't talked to President Putin
No, I have
since
not.
you've been
You
elected?
mean, no, well, I don't want to say that, but I haven't spoken to him recently.
So you've spoken to President Putin since you've
I
been
don't
elected?
want to say that. I don't want to say anything about that because I don't want to do anything that could impede the negotiation.
But you
I want to
have
stop
talked
it.
about
Let me
the
tell you
other
what I
world
have talked
leaders.
about. Let me tell you.
Okay.
There are people being killed in that war at levels that nobody's ever seen before. You have to go back to the Second World War, and even that, if you take a look at, and you know what it is?
Crime's
It's
gone up,
soldiers,
Rudy.
largely.
Crime has gone up.
The cities have been emptied out and demolished. The country has been demolished. If I won that election, which you know how I feel about it, I won't get into it because we don't need to start that argument. I think it's an easy argument. It was really proven even more conclusively by the win that I had on this one.
But you did go to court, sir. You
Well,
did.
that's your opinion,
Yeah,
but I
okay.
disagree with it. Had I kept control, number one, Israel wouldn't have happened. Number two, Ukraine would have never happened. It would have never happened, Ukraine, Russia. But the number of people that are being killed, soldiers, young, beautiful soldiers, hundreds of thousands of people are being killed. And you know, it's very interesting. It's level, totally level. The battlefields, totally level. You know what's happening?
Yeah.
The only thing that stops a bullet, you know what it is a body, a human body. And the people that are being killed, hundreds of thousands on both sides.
This is an NBC News special report. Here's Hallie Jackson.
Oh, this is interesting. In the middle of Meet the Press, I guess the serious stuff popped out. Let's see.
We are coming on the air with breaking news. President Biden about to speak from the White House on those major developments unfolding right now in Syria.
Oh, interesting. So I've got his comments a little bit later in the show notes. And again, if you want to see the show notes, PoliticalCow.com. I just organized them. I mean, they're not terribly fancy. It's just notes, but you can go there. I have all the links and stuff to the various sources that I've been kind of looking at. A lot of them come from the X platform, but I mean, again, if it's video of Trump or video of Biden, you know, talking about Syria, I mean, you'll be able to see that. So let me see if Syria. Oh, wow. Biden took over from this point. How about that, guys? So the interview, I guess, was cut off at that point. It was incomplete because Biden jumped in there. I don't think it was intentional. It's just what happens to be going on right now. I was so tired of him. No wonder Biden was elected. Even my mom, a big Trump fan, didn't vote for him in 2020, but I guess everyone forgot just how bad memory they have. Goldfish people. Goldfish people. Okay. Yeah, Sean, you're absolutely right. We got to focus in on the healthcare challenges with the system that are in place. I just can't get over insurance is just like not value added into the process, right? So anyway, tuning that one off then. Looks like Meet the Press got cut off about halfway through because of Biden's announcement on Syria. As a second topic I was going to kind of run through here was, what the heck's going on with Syria, run through some of the clips and other things that have kind of unfolded over the past couple of days. So, there's Kristen Welker. I think the meme that might be forming here. But there you go. Here's Biden coming up giving his remarks. Let's get...
What happening in the Middle East? After 13 years of civil war in Syria, more than half a century of brutal authoritarian rule by Bashar Assad and his father before him, rebel forces have forced Assad to resign his office and flee the country. We're not sure where he is, but there's word that he's in Moscow. At long last, the Assad regime has fallen. This regime brutalized and tortured and killed literally hundreds of thousands.
Oh, my
of
mistake on that
Syrians.
with the crime.
The fall of the regime is a fundamental act of justice. It's a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria to build a better future for their proud country. It's also a moment of risk and uncertainty. As we all turn to the question of what comes next, the United States will work with our partners and the stakeholders in Syria to help them seize an opportunity to manage the risks. For years, the main backers of Assad have been Iran, Hezbollah, and Russia. But over the last week, their support collapsed, all three of them, because all three of them are far weaker today than they were when I took office. And let's remember why. After Hamas attacked Israel on October the 7th, 2023, when much of the world responded with horror, Iran and its proxies chose to launch a multi-front war against Israel. That was a historic mistake on Iran's part. Today, Iran's main territorial proxy, Hezbollah, is also on its back. Only 12 days ago, I spoke from the Rose Garden about the ceasefire deal in Lebanon, a deal that was only possible because Hezbollah has been badly degraded. Meanwhile, Hamas has been badly degraded as well. Iran's own military capabilities have been weakened. Iran tried 2 times to attack Israel, and the United States and built a coalition of countries to directly defend Israel and help defeat those attacks. All this made possible for Iran.
Guys, I'm going to take a quick break, but I'm going to allow Biden's talk here to keep going through. I will point out one thing that I'm seeing is interesting already is that he's taking credit for a lot of stuff. I mean, this last month or so here, he's taking credit for anything and everything, it feels like. A lot of this action that he's talking about happening was not something that he had set out to accomplish as part of his priorities as president. It was something that was an artifact of circumstance. Hezbollah and Hamas being completely decimated. That was not something that he had stated as an objective of his. It's just something that's a result of circumstance. Good things, but I don't see how he can kind of step in and claim credit for that action, or, in all honesty, why is it important to come out here and assume credit for these things? Does that really matter, right? I'll be back. I'll keep it playing for a second.
And Hezbollah to continue to prop up, impossible, I should say, for them to prop up the Assad regime. Additionally, Russia's support for Assad also failed. And that's because Ukraine, backed by our American allies, has put up a wall of resistance against the invading Russian forces, inflicting massive damage on the Russian forces. And that has left Russia unable to protect its main ally in the Middle East. Excuse my cold. The upshot for all this is, for the first time ever, neither Russia nor Iran nor Hezbollah could defend this abhorrent regime in Syria. And this is a direct result of the blows that Ukraine, Israel have delivered upon their own self-defense with unflagging support of the United States. You know, over the past 4 years, my administration pursued a clear and principled policy towards Syria. First, we made clear from the start sanction on Assad would remain in place unless he engaged seriously in a political process to end the civil war, as outlined by the UN Security Council resolution passed in 2015. But Assad refused, so we carried out a comprehensive sanction program against him and all those responsible for atrocities against the Syrian people. Second, we maintained our military presence in Syria, our counter-ISIS, to counter the support of local partners as well on the ground, their partners, never ceding an inch of territory, taking out leaders of ISIS, ensuring that ISIS can never establish a safe haven there again. Third, we've supported Israel's freedom of action against Iranian networks in Syria and against actors aligned with Iran who transported lethal aid to Lebanon. And when necessary, ordered the use of military force against Iranian networks to protect U.S. forces. Our approach has shifted the balance of power in the Middle East. Through this combination of support for our partners, sanctions, and diplomacy, and targeted military force when necessary, we now see new opportunities opening up for the people of Syria and for the entire region. Looking ahead, the United States will do the following. First, we'll support Syria's neighbors, including Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq, and Israel, should any threat arise from Syria during this period of transition. I will speak with leaders of the region in the coming days. I had long discussions with all of our people earlier this morning. And I'll send senior officials from my administration to the region as well. Second, we will help ensure stability in eastern Syria, protecting any personnel, our personnel, against any threats, and will remain our mission against ISIS will be maintained, including the security of detention facilities where ISIS fighters are being held as prisoners. We're clear-eyed about the fact that ISIS will try to take advantage of any vacuum to reestablish its capabilities and to create a safe haven. We will not let that happen. In fact, just today, U.S. forces conducted dozens of precision strikes, airstrikes, within Syria, targeting ISIS camps and ISIS operatives. Third, we will engage with all Syrian groups, including within the process led by the United Nations, to establish a transition away from the Assad regime toward independent, sovereign, I want to say it again, sovereign Syria, with a new constitution, a new government that serves all Syrians. And this process will be determined by the Syrian people themselves. And the United States will do whatever we can to support them, including through humanitarian relief, to help restore Syria after more than a decade of war and generations of brutality by the Assad family. And finally, we will remain vigilant. Make no mistake, some of the rebel groups that took down Assad have their own grim record of terrorism and human rights abuses. We've taken note of statements by the leaders of these rebel groups in recent days, and they're saying the right things now. But as they take on greater responsibility, we will assess not just their words, but their actions. And we are mindful that there are Americans in Syria, including those who reside there, as well as Austin Tice, who was taken captive more than 12 years ago. We remain committed to returning him to his family. As I've said, this is a moment of considerable risk and uncertainty. But I also believe this is the best opportunity in generations for Syrians to forge their own future, free of opposition. It's also an opportunity though it's far from certain, for a more secure and prosperous Middle East, where our friends are safe, where enemies are contained. And it would be a waste of this historic opportunity if one tyrant were toppled and only to see a new one rise up in its place. So it's now incumbent upon all the opposition groups to seek a role in governing Syria, to demonstrate their commitment to the rights of all Syrians, the rule of law, and the protection of religious and ethnic minorities. These past few days have been historic. And it's in the days ahead that will determine the future of this country. And we intend to approach them with strength, wisdom, and resolve. So thank you very much. God bless America, and God protect our troops. Thank you.
What should happen to Assad now, Mr. President?
Mr. President, are you concerned about all that war in the Middle East?
What does the U.S. know about where Austin Heights might be and if he's safe?
I got to rewind this. He did his turnaround. Let's see again.
Wisdom and resolve. So thank you very much. God bless America, and God protect our troops. Thank you.
What should happen to Assad now, Mr. President?
Mr. President, are you concerned about all that war in the Middle East?
What does the U.S. know about where Austin Heights might be and if he's safe?
We believe he's alive. We think we can get him back, but we have no direct evidence of that yet. And Assad should be held accountable.
Have you directed an operation to go get him, Mr. President?
Is Assad in Moscow?
Get who?
Austin Tice.
We won't want to get him out.
Yes, sir.
We have to identify where he is. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
He did his peekaboo routine again, right? Like the best one is, of course, there's the meme about it where he kind of like turns and gives that like grin. That one's epic. That one's going to live forever. So at this point in time, they were, I guess it wasn't clear where Assad was at the latest one. I don't know if I captured that in the notes here, but he's in Russia right now. Bro is a living Xan. Yoda. That's very good observation there. Very good observation. Yeah. So anyway, Biden jumped in, gave his remarks. That interrupted Meet the Press. So there's a large portion of the Trump interview that never got aired, at least as of today. Hopefully they'll broadcast it soon, but that just hasn't been aired. So anyway, this one was interesting, right? Syrian rebels giving an interview to Israeli news.
أتكلم معكم غريب شهادات لقناة كان 11 الإسرائيلية أعزائي والفرحة
Oh shoot. Okay, this one, there was one that had like a English dub version to it, but let me bring up this entire comment here, which I thought was kind of interesting. So, I mean, the gist of it, dear neighbors and friends from the friendly state of Israel, I am talking to you. The people of Dara are joyous after Assad's rule was diminished. I'm speaking on behalf of all of the free people of Syria. Our next phase will be harmony and peace with the state of Israel. I thought an interesting message that's kind of being broadcast out there by one of the rebel leaders here. That was put out there, but there was like a successive, number of things that kind of got brought out here. I wonder who was really the president for the past 4 years. I think there was a group of interns that, I don't know, that just did random stuff for the past 4 years. So Yoda asks, what does the rebel forces taking Damascus mean for the United States? I wonder if we had some hand in this, if we helped kind of encourage this action to happen. So I'm hopeful that it stabilizes things long term. Because where do those rebels get funded? Where do those rebels get their resource from? This particular post I thought was pretty interesting. This account is clearly I don't know, it's not a bot, but it's clearly driven to kind of put a negative spin out there and be pro-Syria, and it's been out there for quite some time. But you can see here that it's kind of claiming that Turkey was behind a good bit of this activity.
Şu an itibariyle tabii İdlib, Hama ve Humus hedef tabii Şam. Muhaliflerin bu yürüyüşü şu an itibariyle devam ediyor. Biz de bunu gerek istihbarat gerekse bütün medyadan takibini yapıyoruz. Tabii temennimiz kazasız belasız bir şekilde Suriye'deki bu yürüyüş devam etsin diyeceğim. Ama terör örgütleriyle birlikte oradaki bu direniş devam ederken bizim de hatırlarsanız Esed'e bir çağrımız olmuştu. Gel görüşelim ve Suriye'nin geleceğini.
So here, let's determine the future of Syria together. Turkey having a stronger role in this, right? So this accountant's kind of pointing at Turkey, but I thought this clip was still interesting that there was some discussions put out there like this. There have been a few accounts like that were out there that had a very pro-Syrian spin on things. I don't know the source of it, if it was directly promoted and funded from the Syrian government or if it was Russia or whatever. But giving there to be a buffer, and I don't know what kind of, I haven't kept up with ISIS activities or anything like that that's been kind of emerging or developing in Syria. But I think having another buffer in that region for Israel, if that regime can become friendlier towards the United States, that would kind of diminish a lot of the proxy battles that Iran and some of the other, funding and arms that were kind of being funneled in through that country. So you saw like what was going on in Lebanon, Hezbollah and stuff. Stuff was getting floated through Syria to kind of get brought into those regions. So I think it's partly to help kind of diminish that structure to it. But I mean, that's just me speculating at this point. But I thought this clip was interesting that, Turkey's commentary on that as well. And then, of course, Netanyahu came out and this part's interesting, talked about that Israel's kind of made a move into a buffer region that existed for, I think, many decades between Syria and Israel.
This is a historic day for the Middle East. The collapse of the Assad regime, the tyranny in Damascus, offers great opportunity, but also is fraught with significant dangers. This collapse is a direct result of our forceful action against Hezbollah and Iran, Assad's main supporters. It set off a chain reaction of all those who want to free themselves from this tyranny and its suppression. But it also means we have to take action against possible threats. One of them is the collapse of the Separation of Forces Agreement from 1974 between Israel and Syria. This agreement held for 50 years. Last night it collapsed. The Syrian army abandoned its positions. We gave the Israeli army the order to take over these positions to ensure that no hostile force embeds itself right next to the border of Israel.
So let me ask my AI about that separation of forces agreement between Syria and
Hi again,
Israel.
Masood. I'm here. What's up?
Hey, can you tell the live stream viewers about the separation of forces agreement that existed between Israel and Syria?
Sure thing. The Separation of Forces Agreement between Israel and Syria was signed in 1974, following the Yom Kippur War of 1973. It was brokered by the United Nations to establish a ceasefire and a buffer zone between the two countries. Essentially, it created a demilitarized zone, a DMZ, and limited the military forces and weapons in the surrounding areas. The United Nations Disengagement Observer Force UNDOF, was established to monitor the agreement. It's still in place today, but the situation remains tense. Got anything else on your mind?
All right, so that was my AI Yoda. It's the AI. It's like that one movie. What was his name? Joaquin Phoenix was in a long time ago, I guess, what you're saying there. But the last part of it, she starts laughing at you. It just gets a little creepy sometimes. It starts to laugh. Sometimes it speaks sternly, and you're like, hey, why you talking like that to me? And it's like, oh, sorry. I was having a very serious thought or something like that. And it's like, anyway, so buffer zone established after the Yom Kippur War 50 years ago. No military installations, just kind of keeping those two regions separate. That's a pretty important thing. Now, if there is no government in place, who's going to, provide assurance that still exists? And that's what Netanyahu's talking about here. I'll let him kind of complete his thought here.
This is a temporary defensive position until a suitable arrangement is found. Equally, we send a hand of peace to all those beyond our border in Syria, to the Druze, to the Kurds, to the Christians, and to the Muslims who want to live in peace with Israel. We're going to follow events very carefully. If we can establish neighborly relations and a peaceful relations with the new forces emerging in Syria, that's our desire. But if we do not, we'll do whatever it takes to defend the state of Israel and the border of Israel.
So again, the government's not in place anymore. So technically speaking, that agreement has fallen flat. There's no one that you really have an agreement with. And so I put a link in here to the original source. I can't remember. I think it was an Israeli publication, that published this map. But you could kind of see the buffer zone that was established along the border here that ran the length of the border between Syria and Israel. And so these are the strategic positions that they've taken for an interim period of time. And it's probably based on intelligence. So anyway, some additional clips here as things unfolded, reactions from the people in different parts of Syria. You can see the fireworks just kind of going off continuously here.
احلى شباب الله يحميكم يا اولادي شعور اولادكم من جديد انا ولدتكم اليوم ولدت انا شعور اولادي رجعوا لي الحمد لله رب العالمين من قدرها الحمد لله والله صرنا الحمد لله رب العالمين لك الشكر يا الله هاي حمص العدي يا رب هاي حمص العدي يا رب كرمك يا رب واحبابنا.
All right, so you get the picture. That guy had a fairly long monologue. I don't have a translation of it, but a lot of people out late into the middle of the night, just so excited about what's going on. Yeah, it happened pretty darn quick. I was kind of caught off guard by how quickly it happened as well. But you see here too, a lot of the soldiers too, former Syrian army members or military members, taking refuge in Iraq, interestingly enough. Oh, I got to pull this up on the X platform real quick. So short clip, but shows them kind of crossing the border, hustling their way in there. And I don't know if it's the next clip I have here. No, it's a little bit further down. So again, folks getting together in Germany, rejoicing over it, thrilled about what's happening. While we're on it, let me go to the clip I was thinking of. So here's the actual video. Now, I don't know how they get this video out so quickly, right? I mean, this is like security cam footage, but you can see they're like taking off their gear. They're like, I'm not part of the military anymore. And they're abandoning, ship here. And then, of course, they run across into Iraq, across the border there. But this one was interesting, right? they actually entered the presidential palace, and they've got quite a bit of video of people just wandering and kind of like grabbing different artifacts from there. So I think you get the picture here. But just one of those strange scenes is people kind of...
كما تتابعون الآن كذلك مشاهدينا هذه الصور من...
And again, there's a lot of footage of people going into different rooms of the palace, so forth. Statues, just like the scenes that you saw in Iraq after Iraq was, Saddam's reign was ended. Statues being kind of taken down, very symbolic of an end to... And so the Syrian military, right, issued a statement. It's funny, they give these statements all the time, and it makes me think of, I can't remember the guy's name, but during the original Gulf War in the early 90s, there was an information minister that Iraq had, and he was, I don't know, he was clearly lying, right? Saying like, oh, we're winning, there's the forces, cannot, get through our lines and so forth. And you hear explosions happening in the background, like the American troops are like about to approach and take over the capital. And he's still insisting that that's not the case. But, they give a spiel like that up here, and wouldn't you know it, this is the scene right afterwards, right? This one was interesting. There's 4 different pieces of footage, but the rebel group actually went into the state-run television network in Syria. Let's bring that up. And is there any audio on this one? Okay, well, it's not translated anyway, but they go into the state-run media, get on camera, and broadcast to everybody like, hey, Assad's reign is over. We've kind of pushed him out here. Oop, let me get that closed. Of course, saw that one. Now, in announcing that he's been pushed out of power, then you have a lot of the loyalists at the airport being viewed. Now, I mean, they're in an absolute panic here.
قلنا لهم المطار صديق ما حد مصدقنا. يا بيي العالم سكرت هربت.
I mean, this tweet says, or this post says that they're trying to catch the last plane out. Whether that was the last plane or not, I don't know. But now, it's not that they were necessarily loyalists in the sense of they were in the military or a secret service type scenario or whatever it might be for the Assad regime. They may have just been kind of the inner circle, relatives, friends, family that were part of the wealthy group of folks in the capital there. And now that, the regime's been toppled, they're feeling that they're in danger and they need to get out of there, right? So, it's one of those weird scenarios that a lot of those folks probably did have a part to play in the government. Some of them may have just been, relatives and friends and so forth. So they're just all trying to get out of town before, they get caught up in stuff. But interesting footage that it's been captured now, because there's so many instances of this happened in the past where you hear about people leaving the Shah of Iran many years ago being overthrown, Same thing happened with his loyalists, right? They all had to flee and get out of town. But now you have like a lot of footage of these types of things. And of course, more
هاي غرفة بنته انهبت هبي. كانت
presidential
غرفة
palace.
بنته. الله لا يردها.
Am I going through all the stuff
عم
here?
يقولوا خدي خالتي خدي صحتين حقك ومستحقك.
Getting little trophies for themselves.
هذا شيء.
An AI president. Oh, Iverson for Syria.
لك وين قسم الرجالي عمار؟ رجالي وين رجالي؟ بيبينا تحت ولادي فوق محير هون في تنزيلات مالك الماركات لوي فيتون شوف.
Anyway, well, last clip I got there. If you, again, PoliticalCow.com, if you want to go take a look at the show notes, see what's kind of going on there. I'm going to end the stream there. At this point, I'm starting to get a bit of a migraine. I need to go take a break myself. It's getting a little late for me here in Central Time Zone, but I appreciate everybody joining. I had about 26,000 people come through the live stream, so I appreciate that very much. And folks, take a look at Ground News. Let me bring it up real quick. Ground.news. Phenomenal site. Just right off the bat here, you could see, some pretty good stuff here. So you got, Biden says fall of Assad regime is a historic opportunity. And then this is not the French flag here. It's, showing the political spectrum. Blue centers, in white, and then the red for the right. And it kind of, let's click through that and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. 136 sources, I think I read on this one. And it'll kind of outline for you what the bias comparison is going on. The left emphasizes the fall of Syria as a fundamental act of justice. The center frames it as a historic opportunity. Bias distribution, 34% of sources is from the right. The level of factuality that's assessed for each of the publications that's showing them. Only 8% independent news sources, and then it kind of gives you a selection of them to kind of go through. You could kind of pick out, more articles as you kind of go through here. But I think a really good resource to really get a sense of, what's really going on out there and be able to compare different elements. Because sometimes when you look at the different news sources reporting on the same event, they'll focus in on a specific aspect of it. And you kind of have to read multiple sources to get a complete picture. I like how Ground News, you can kind of bring that all kind of together in one spot. So I got it pinned. It's also in my my link tree in my bio, but on YouTube here, the pinned chat that I've got out there, if you hit that link, there's a 50% off promotion running right now to join with their Vantage membership. So go check that out. But otherwise, guys, I'm going to close it out here. I appreciate everyone that's joined in. Hit the like button. Hit some of those little icons there on your way out. Subscribe to. We'll be continuing to do these sessions as we go. If you've been part of previous ones, this is a little bit earlier that we're closing things out, and it's just because we were able to start a little bit earlier. Going to try to keep backing that up a little bit more to be able to capture more time zones. But I appreciate everybody in the chat, dropping your thoughts in there, whether it was, against Trump, for Trump, whatever it might be. Everybody has a thought process, and being able to vocalize it and talk about it, I think, is important, which, again, I think that's a foundation for what Ground News represents, being able to kind of show you a complete picture of all sides of the news. I use it pretty extensively. In fact, it's a good source for researching content. So anyway, guys, I appreciate it. Y'all take care. Have a good evening. I leave you with the theme song.
Truth emerges, political power.